Hello YouTube, BlueMatona here, and welcome to this episode of Game Guides. We're going to be diving into how to make money in Rome Total War. First and foremost, don't be afraid about negative numbers in cities. This is an important point to get out of the way right off the bat, in that your finances for each city actually aren't perfectly evenly balanced. It has nothing to do with where you train troops or where they're stationed. Instead, the cost of all your armies is spread across your cities by population. So a city like here, Carthage, with 33,000 and change population, is responsible for almost 5k armed forces running costs, 4,776, plus an additional 452 salaries of generals and agents. That's pretty high. If you compare that to a city like Corrales here, much smaller population, 4,900, that city's actually only responsible for 707 army costs and 67 from the salaries. So if everything was spread equally amongst every city, Carthage would undoubtedly be making more money. We're making 631 from admin, 2,059 from trade, 1,300 from taxes, and 1,100 from farms. Compared to the same income streams here in Corrales, we're looking at 704 from trade, 923 from taxes, 556 from farms. So obviously Carthage is making a ton more money each turn, but Corrales is going to show a lot more income and a lot more profitability on the map because of the fact that it's not covering as much cost of units and generals and agents. So now let's look at ways you can actually make money. First and foremost, and the most valuable one for you, is going to be trade. Trade is based on trade resources in a province, as well as a few additional buildings that can help support trade. Primarily ports, that's the most important. Also roads and the trader and marketplace buildings you can build, etc. will boost your trade income in a province. So every province, you'll see these trade resources on the map. Some will support unit types that you can build, like elephants allow the training of elephant units, camels, same thing. And then some are trade resources. Like here in Carthage, we have olive oil, a valuable trade resource. We have timber, a valuable trade resource. And we have grain, which is a valuable resource that increases population growth in the settlements. If you look at the trade screen, you can see that your trade income is a big division based on imports and exports, both by land and by sea. And this is why a port is extremely important. You can trade by land from any provinces that border that city's province. So Carthage here can trade by land with Thapsus and Cirta. It cannot trade by land with Corrales, Libyum, or other provinces here like Lepsis Magna and other ones in the area. For example, here in the city of Cyrene, we don't actually have a friendly border state, so we can't trade by land. Over here in Numidia, we are at war, so we don't have a trade agreement with them, and we don't connect to any other province. So if we were to go into the trade screen, you'd see here the only money we're making by trade is via the sea, from sea exports. In cities where you connect with a state where you do have a trade agreement, like here in Germania, I do have a trade agreement, and you can see I have land trade imports and exports with that settlement. You can see where there is a land border with an enemy country, or with a neutral country that we have a trade agreement with, you will get trade income. So, getting trade agreements are really important, and also building those ports. And it's not just the base level of ports that gets you trade income. Every upgrade to the port allows you for additional trade routes into that city. So you'll see here, we only have the basic level of ports. We are making 1053, and that's because we have sea exports, only one trade route. That's making us 490 with Croton. If we were to build the shipwright, you can see now our projected trade is actually going to go up from 1053 to 1368, and that's because we add the additional trade fleet. We go from 1 to 2. You can see here the port, trade fleet's available 1, the next level shipwright 2. Skipping ahead a few turns here, we completed the shipwright, and you can see we now have 2 sea export trade routes, so we're making that additional money from the second trade route. Another good example of the importance of ports is the city of Thebes over here in Egypt. Thebes is only bordering 2 provinces by land, Memphis and Siwa. So if we look at the trade screen here, we can actually see that we only have land trade between Memphis and Siwa, which makes sense. That's where all of our trade's coming from. Now we can see here that Thebes does have the opportunity to build a port, but not on the Mediterranean Sea like most other factions. Instead, it's on the tip here of the Red Sea. I think this is the Gulf of Suez in modern day. Suez Canal is right here. So you'd think, well, why is it worth building a port here in this province? We have our land trade. This isn't going to give any trade opportunities, but it actually is. So if we go ahead and build a port here, you'll see our trade would increase from 228 to 510. That's a pretty big increase. And that's because we'd be opening up trade routes with the city of Petra, with the city of Bostra as well. Connecting here through these port provinces, we can then get sea trade with those settlements and not just on land. So really having the base level port is so critical in this game, and just making sure every province at least has it if you want to boost your economy. Also, roads give a good increase to trade income here in the city of Messana. We can see if I upgraded the port, we would actually gain an additional about 240 trade income. If I upgraded the roads, we would gain an additional about 75. So we don't gain as much by upgrading roads. Or if I were to build the bazaar, again, we wouldn't gain as much from upgrading the market/bazaar. That gives the increase in tradable goods. But it would give some increase. Ultimately, though, roads and markets and temples that give increase to tradable goods are important, but upgrading your ports is going to be top priority. That's where you're going to make your good money, and that's also where you're going to then be able to spend that money to build better ships and dominate the seas. Next, and this is really important and I think always overlooked in this game, is actually the position of your capital. So there is a corruption factor in Rome Total War. The further away a city is from the capital, the more corruption costs will be. We'll see here in our capital, there is no corruption, taking away income. If we were to move, let's just say over to Syracuse, still no corruption. Okay, so that's close enough. Now let's go all the way up to like Tarentum. You can see now corruption is starting to creep in, 37. Now let's move way over here to Crete, and you can see corruption is 612 because we're even further. So moving your capital closer and more centrally located in your empire will significantly cut down your corruption cost. If I were to move my capital over here to Syracuse, let's just take a look. How do I do that? Yep, name the city the capital. There we go. Then now it's in Syracuse. If we go to Kydonia, we should see, yes, corruption decreased pretty significantly. So the closer your capital is to your provinces, the more centrally located it is in your empire, the more important that's going to be. For like Roman nations where your capitals are in Italy in the center of the map, or Carthage, or Greece, this may not be super important, but let's say you were playing a game as the Prince Britannia, and you came and you invaded Italy, well, your cities in Italy would be gaining tons of corruption if your capital was still all the way up here in Londonia. I think that's what that province is called. Instead, you can move your capital to a more centrally located position and make a lot more money right away. Next up, we have taxes. This is probably the most easy to understand, and that's why I waited till third to talk about it, even though it is a key source of income. But you have an individual tax rate control for every city. It can be low, normal, high, or very high. Each level that you go up in taxes will make you more money, but also decrease public order. As you can see here, low tax rate, we are making negative 141 income in the city, and we're making 814 from taxes, and our public order is at 90. If we went all the way to the top bracket, we're now making 572 and 1527 in taxes, but our public order drops to 20 because of the tax penalty. So this is always a balancing act. Definitely in most cases, keep tax rate as high as you can to make the most money you can without upsetting your city and letting them revolt or riot. Also, every level you go up in tax rate impacts your population growth by half a point. So if you have a city that you want to grow a little more rapidly, maybe keep that tax rate a little lower. Finally, looking at the financial screen here, you also have farming and mining income. Those are a little bit more niche and not as important in my opinion. Farming is present in every province. You can build farms. There's multiple levels of farms. It'll be everywhere that you have a province. You can build the farm tree, and every level of farms you go up, you can see the improved farms and food production goes up by +1. When you build the next level farm, you'll see here, it'll be reflected in that you will gain additional farming income. It's usually less than trade though. Definitely you should prioritize trade right away. Finally, you have your mining. Mining is unique in that you need the mine resource in your province. So like Croton here is a great example of that. We have the silver mine. I know this province here has the gold mine. Mines are kind of spread throughout the map, usually in more mountainous areas. And then you can build the mines buildings here. You can see mines buildings, and it'll just give you a flat rate income from mining. I think level 1 gives 200, level 2 gives 350. For silver, if you have gold mining, it's more. Finally, a few other small ways to make money in this game. You can make money as Roman nations by successfully completing Senate missions. Sometimes they won't give you money. Sometimes they'll give you units and other bonuses. But if it says you will be greatly rewarded, that's usually a cash bonus. So we had the Senate mission there to take Apollonia. If we went across here and took the settlement really quickly, what we can see when we take it, we'll just auto-resolve this battle, so we'll bring that in very quickly. We'll go ahead and attack. And what we can see here when we take the settlement is that we'll get a bonus from the Senate for having taken that Senate mission successful. Also, you can make money by occupying, enslaving, and exterminating the populace. So just expanding your territory will make you money. Not only will you gain an additional city's trade resources, that city will also pay for a share of your unit cost and your general costs and your agent costs, but also you can make money in a lump sum just by taking the settlement. Exterminating the population will give you the most money gained from looting, enslaving will give you a bit less, and occupying will give you usually a bit less than that as well. So if you can make a good bulk there by exterminating the population. This was a small population city. If you exterminated the populace in a larger city, you could be gaining 10, 15, 20,000 denarii in one go. And then you see here, Senate mission successful. You've been granted a gift of 5,000 denarii for completing that Senate mission. And that about wraps up the important sources of income. Expenditures, almost all is going to be your army upkeep. Army upkeep includes both land and sea units. It's just all military units that you produce together. That's going to be your main source of upkeep. If you build buildings, like if I wanted to build the army barracks here, obviously those will have a cost as well, and that will then be factored into your construction expenditure. If I went and I dismantled a building, I think that then I would gain, if I dismantled a building and then went into financial, you can see I would actually gain some income from construction. This is transitory. This is only one turn that you'll ever see it reflected here. Like if you build a building that turn, it'll be reflected in your expenditure. If you destroy a building, it'll be reflected in your income. That doesn't really carry over turn to turn. So if you're struggling with cash, you can build less, or you can disband units. If you cut down your army, obviously your army upkeep will be less. Wages is going to be for your generals, your spies, your diplomats, your assassins. If that's too expensive, you can disband them, although usually that's pennies on the dollar compared to your army upkeep. So yeah, I think that about wraps it up. I hope you all got a very good idea of how to manage budgets in this game. Basically, don't worry too much about cities going into debt. That usually just means that they're paying for a larger share of your units and generals and agents. Make sure you build ports basically everywhere you can, get trade agreements with other factions, and just all in all, be a little bit conscious too to not train up too many armies without expanding. If you train a ton of troops, you need to be out there taking additional settlements as well. So I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you for watching. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Have a good one.